Tony Katz. Facebook, Tony Katz Radio. Be sure to like the page. This terrorist attack in New York, 8 dead, 15 injured. This terrorist, an Uzbek national who's been in the country since 2010, according to reports, got here on a diversity visa. One of the things President Trump, I believe, wants to do away with. The diversity visa, which just says, hey, you get a visa and you get a visa, and doesn't really provide us any purpose whatsoever. It doesn't provide any safe haven or anything else. Here since 2010, lived in Florida, lived in Ohio, lives in New Jersey, according to sources. Drove down the bike path in this rented Home Depot pickup truck, killing, murdering 8 people, injuring 15. Only stopped when he hit a school bus, then got out, according to sources, yelled Allahu Akbar, and then ran towards children. That's how the story is told. What you might not have known, as this took place on Halloween, was that there was a message that was put out by ISIS and ISIS sympathizers saying, enjoy their gathering, terrorize October 31st. It was a shot of the Eiffel Tower with a knife that was bloodstained, a hand holding on to it. They've done this kind of thing before. We always remember that when we talk about ISIS, when we talk about terrorists, Al-Qaeda, whoever, these are not cave dwellers. The fact that Osama bin Laden lived in squalor doesn't mean that there aren't skill sets available. They have Photoshop. They can go about there. They create websites. They create newsletters or newspapers, all sorts of things that they put out to try and radicalize people. Because we've also heard ISIS on the run, how they've lost Raqqa in Syria, how they've been surrendering literally 1,000 at a time. But that doesn't mean that their radicalization efforts have ended, nor that they're going to end anytime soon. The radicalization is real. The threat to us is real. And we've seen it once again in New York. New York is Indianapolis. It's only a matter of time. We understand this, right? I live in Indianapolis. New York is Indy. New York is, pick your spot, Columbus, Ohio, Oklahoma City. I mean, name your spot, Seattle, Washington, Bozeman, Montana, name it. It's only a matter of time. That's a problem, and one that we have to address. But it's important to note that what we're seeing here, the two realities going on at the same time. ISIS is on the run. The change in strategy, how President Trump has allowed commanders on the ground to make decisions as the conditions on the ground warrant, that has been incredibly helpful. That has been hugely successful. But the radicalization is still out there, and we have to work on that and be paying attention to that. There are only so many ways to fight this, and one of them is you can't be afraid to go outside. The objective is for them to change how we live. I'm not changing how I live. You got to go outside. You got to be able to walk down a city street. You got to be prepared. You got to be ready. It's hard to be ready for someone who decides to pick up a truck and run people over. But we also have to make a decision about what we're really going to do about terrorism and those nations that harbor and support terrorists. We also have to make a decision in the United States that we are not going to be the people that attack ourselves when others do evil. Let me take you to NBC. NBC put out a tweet. I will put it up on my Twitter feed at Tony Katz. I will put a copy of it where this is posted on Facebook, facebook.com/Tony Katz Radio. And NBC News last night, 8:33 p.m., put out the following tweet. Muslim Americans again brace for backlash after New York attack. That's journalistic malpractice. I'm still waiting to see the Muslim backlash after September 11th. The mosques didn't get burned down. Muslims were not beaten on the streets. That's because that's not who we are. That's not what Americans do, if only because there are Muslims who are Americans. This is the kind of garbage. The NBC should be ashamed of themselves for putting this out into the world. Are they out of their minds? What backlash? What backlash? Does that mean that we should sit quiet and say, oh, well, it's terrorism. What are you going to do? No. I don't believe that for a moment. I believe that's a horrific idea. But this headline says that we, Americans, are the ones to blame if we notice that once again there is a radicalized Muslim engaged in terrorism. We're not to blame for being honest with ourselves. We're not to blame for seeing things with our eyes. We are not to blame for recognizing our reality. We are only to blame if we do nothing about it. Those days have to be over. 8 people got murdered in New York, and they didn't deserve it. And we should really work harder to make sure it doesn't happen again. But actually work at it. More ahead. I'm Tony Katz.
Hammer and Nigel.
6 construction companies.